The police here have kind of backed off here. What do you think about what's going on here today so far?
Yeah, the police did back off. They came out in riot gear. They probably regrouping, but they really in a tough situation because how are they going to respond to it? If they move people violently, which I think they probably would have to do, the Longshore is still not going to go to work. So, I mean, they're in a tough situation. Yeah.
Well, they were trying to say that they shouldn't shut the port down. They're going to keep the port open, and that this is going to hurt the people if the port is shut down. What's your response to that?
It was a lot of propaganda going on by the media, the Port of Oakland, and even the international leaders of our union and other unions. But however, here we are today, and people are out here. A lot of people. 5 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it's a huge success. Remember, 5 o'clock in the morning on a Monday, not a Saturday. People gave up a day's pay, and I want people to know that it's all kind of working people out here. It's not a thing of homeless people, professional protesters, but working men and women out here giving up a day's pay to move forward.
And why are the officials so afraid of this movement and the action today? Why are they afraid of it?
Maybe it might break up their ties with the Democratic Party. Yeah, maybe it might just break up their and they just believe in business. You know, it's a right and a wrong way to do things, but no one's going to have a control and say over that with what's going on. You know, Occupy didn't start this, the longshoremen didn't start this. The situation that's going on has brought this forward. You know, with people losing their houses and losing jobs and stuff like that, this is a product of what's going on that brought people out here.
So you think that there are millions of people who are angry and fed up and are ready to start to move?
I think there are millions of people that's mad and probably will be out here, but they can't miss a day's work. You know, or the propaganda, they only watch TV and they think it's just a bunch of professional protesters or people that's trying to overthrow the U.S. government or whatever's going on. But I think a lot of people is here in solidarity, even though they're not here physically.
And if this starts to spread all over the country, all over the ports, and the airline workers, there are a lot of workers without contracts, is this a movement towards a general strike?
It could be. It could be. And you know what? I guarantee you some money will be found then. I guarantee you they'll find some money then to please the people. But we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing? That's the question I would ask. Are we just begging and wanting capitalism to make some changes, or are we trying to create a whole new economic system? So I think those would be some of the questions we would have to ask ourselves. Because then when will we back off? Will we back off right now if they gave Longview longshoremen the jobs? Will everybody go home in victory? I don't think that would be enough. So it's more than that. If they passed a law to tax rich people 10%, would that be a victory and we go home? That wouldn't be enough. So I mean, we have to ask ourselves, what are we after? Who are we?
Well, people in the Occupy movement say that they want a society where humanity, where people live for the good of people and not for profit. I mean, that's kind of a radical demand, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's a radical demand of what we've been taught of what society is and what's acceptable. But I think it's a very realistic and a demand that we need to move forward with how this system is going now. So yeah, I think that's something that has to happen.
Now, the struggle in Longview, what's going on there? Because they seem to be under tremendous threat. The federal judge, the small town, there are over 200 charges against the workers at Longview.
Yeah, and it's a $250,000 fine on the ILWU itself to not even act of what we're doing now, which brings us back to why the international is being so, scared to move, because of all the probably pressure from the Democrats and the federal and laws and stuff like that. But I mean, Longview is pretty much, they've been doing that work out there for 75 years, a long time, and they just opened up a new facility and didn't hire longshore labor. So that's a big problem with the ILWU.
And they want to break this coastwide contract? Is that what's behind it?
Yeah. And Longview would be a foothold in breaking the coastwide contract. And I just want to say, like, the ILW itself has to be protected as an institution. I mean, it's one of the last great institutions, not perfect, but great institutions in the fact that you can just come down, give your Social Security, and your driving license and have no training and then come down and make a good salary to feed your family, and that changes lives. That changes life. And personally, while I'm in it, you know, coming from the ghettos of Los Angeles and not being educated, I got a lot of issues going on, but the one thing that keeps me strong is I get a paycheck and I can take care of my family. So I can't imagine someone dealing with poverty and everything that go on and then not being able to take care of his family.
And that's for millions of working people.
That's for millions of working people. I mean, how can you hold your head up when you're struggling to feed your kids? You know, this system create chaos within people and desperate people. So, I mean, it's kind of like they spending trillions of dollars telling us they keeping us safe from terrorists, but they're creating terrorists at the same time by cutting education programs for old people and stuff. They're creating terrorists. We got to be worried about getting robbed at the ATM machine by somebody who's outside of work instead of some foreign enemy that they telling us that we need to spend money on to protect ourselves.
Well, it seems they have an unlimited budget for more military, going to Australia, having military troops all over the world. You think this movement is going to lead to forcing the U.S. government to withdraw from all these bases?
I hope the movement do. I mean, the movement just have to be careful what it falls under. I mean, right now I feel it's acting independent from any type of political party. But I mean, at some point in time, it has to become its own political party.
My name is Clarence Thomas. I'm a third-generation longshoreman, and I'm a member of ILWU Local 10. I've been on the waterfront for over 25 years, and I'm not speaking for the union. I'm speaking as the co-chair of the Million Worker March, which is supporting the Occupy movement. And this is a historic day today.
Why is this day historic?
It's historic because we haven't seen anything quite like this since the 1930s. That's when we were building unions. What this suggests to me is this is how the labor movement is going to have to rebuild. We represent only 7.2% of the private sector right now. That's the lowest since 1900. Labor has to make a decision. In the past, labor has been the arbiter for social justice and workers' rights between capital and the working class. That's not happening anymore. If Harry Bridges were alive, I think he'd have a very positive take on this, because this is how the ILWU was born. It was born in struggle. It was about a strike for workers to have collective bargaining and the right to have a hiring hall. It was a challenge to capital, and that's what's going on here today. It's a challenge to capital, and it's going on in Oakland, Los Angeles, it's going on in Seattle, in Portland, it's going on in Vancouver, Canada, and we also understand in Houston, Texas, and maybe even New York. So you can't dismiss this. I mean, this is an indication of something.
Well, the Port of Oakland had ads in the New York Times and the Chronicle to keep the port open, and the media, ABC, all the corporate channels are saying that this is this is going to hurt working people and that the port has to be kept open. Why are they so afraid of this?
Because they serve capital. I mean, let's make no mistake about it. There's some longshoremen that are unhappy today, but here's the point. The only time we get any attention and any change in this country is if we do make the ruling class uncomfortable. That's how we got the right to an 8-hour workday, the benefits. People need to understand we didn't get these benefits because of the kindness of the bosses. We got these benefits because people died. In our own history, in 1934, July 5th, Bloody Thursday, 2 maritime workers were killed. So there's blood, sweat, and tears that have gone into formulating this movement. What's really kind of discouraging is to not find labor being as militant as it once was. My question is this. Well, let me make the point. My point is this. We utilize the contract, but we're not about just the contract. We're about something much more. So when we talk about the sanctity of the contract, I think that goes against the 10 guiding principles of the ILWU. This is about working people standing up. And how could you be discouraged? These are our children that are out here today, our young people. Their future is much bleaker than my generation's was, and they've got every right to be down here. They're peacefully assembling. They are saying, we have learned from our grandfathers and our fathers, this is what it's all about. So this is very, very important. Labor has been invigorated by this. The question is, are we going to see new leadership emerge? We need new leadership right now.
Do you think this is going to strengthen the ILWU's fight in Longview and your upcoming contract and the fight of all workers? There are thousands of workers, tens of thousands of workers without contracts that are being jerked around by the employers.
I don't see how it couldn't, Steve. The people of Longview have been involved in a heroic struggle, but they can't do it alone. These transnational corporations have tremendous amount, not only wealth, but also power. And so this is about flexing the muscle on the waterfront. We've been doing that grain work for almost 80 years now. And so now that jurisdiction is being challenged. 30% of the funding for our health care and our pension comes from that grain operation. This is a defining moment for the ILWU. You cannot do this negotiating without the community and without the rank and file, in my opinion. So to answer your question, this can only help. I know the people in Longview are very gratified by this. Very gratified. How could they not be? How could they not be? And this also says a lot to labor, because for those who say that the Occupy movement doesn't have any clear demands, that it's that their demands are too broad or whatever, I think that this demonstration today is really quite clear.
Well, it seems like the issues, the truckers, the people who've lost their homes, the people that can't get health care, I mean, all the issues facing the entire population, students who can't afford to go to school, it seems like these issues are all the issues that are coming up at this rally here.
Well, but there's no question about that, and I think that that's very important. For those who say that this struggle with EGT is the ILWU's purview or bailiwick and no one else should be supportive, that just defies logic. How could you say that? Because this situation is not just with the ILWU, it's global. And this Occupy movement is global. We see workers in Europe. Just a couple of weeks ago, we saw the tremendous turnout for a strike with the public sector workers, I believe, in Great Britain. Things are happening all over the world. So this is not a local situation here.
Now, what about the movement for a general strike? There was a strike in England of 2 million public workers. Do you think there's going to be a movement in the United States for all the unions together to go out and collectively take action?
That's a very good question. I was recently in Los Angeles at the U.S. Human Rights Network conference, and I met with people in Los Angeles, and so they're already making the call that they want to see a general strike on May 1st, 2012. I think that's an achievable goal.
You think that would bring the troops home?
Well, I know one thing, it certainly would move labor in the right direction, and that most certainly would put pressure on the powers that be. It will certainly change the conversation in Washington, D.C.
Now, in the past, the ILWU, the only union really, has acted collectively on May 1st in 2008 against the Iraq War. And there's been some concern by longshoremen that they're the only people that go out. And why don't you address that?
Well, I think that this action today, as well as the action on November 2nd, speaks to that. The only issue, Steve, is this, that it wasn't labor that initiated this, although it is important to note that longshoremen are involved in the Occupy movement. One of the great things about this union is that we have autonomy and we have democracy, and this is a rank and file union. I'm able to speak today not as a representative of Local 10, but as the member of the Million Worker March movement, which was launched by Local 10, because we wanted to give workers a voice independent for rank and file workers. Rank and filers need to have their own voice.
Is that why they tried to crush the ILWU in the 50s and 60s during the witch hunts?
There's no question about it. If you look at the history of Harry Bridges, and I would suggest to the people who will be watching this video, to study the history of Harry Bridges. The U.S. government went after him on 4 separate occasions. They claimed that he was a member of the Communist Party. He never proved that. They also claimed he was an illegal alien. But in my opinion, they went after Harry Bridges because he was a Marxist and he understood that discrimination was a tool of the bosses. It divides the working class. I had conversations with black longshoremen today, and I reminded them how black people got on the waterfront. In the 1930s, there were a few blacks working on the waterfront, but by and large, blacks worked on the waterfront as scabs. Bridges realized that they could not win the strike without the black community. He did something very visionary and strategic. He went to black churches and he appealed to the black community to join the picket line in exchange for inclusion in the Union. And I asked one of the blank rank and filers, I said, how would history have been different if black people had not honored that picket line? I said, that's the reason why we're honoring the community picket line today. We've come full circle. So this is about standing up for the community. This is about standing up for ourselves. Because if longshoremen did this action today, we would be facing heavy fines, and I don't know what they would try to do to us. But the community is doing it in our name. And they respect the legacy of the ILWU. This is the union that stood up against fascism in the 1930s by not handling scrap iron that was destined to go to Japan. This is the union that refused to unload cargo from South Africa for 11 days, raising the level of resistance against apartheid. This is the union that shut down ports at all 29 ports on the 1st of May Day, during a contract negotiation in opposition to the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. This is the union that shut down 5 Bay Area ports in support of Oscar Grant. So this is a historic moment for ILWU members and for all workers to see something like this happening at the ports.
Okay, thank you.